Welcome everyone to the September Community PowerShell and Open SSH Community Call. You can see all of us joining from a conference room here, so we'll be passing it to each other for the agendas. Like I said earlier, the agenda is posted in the discussion tab, and we have a pretty busy agenda today, so I guess we'll probably jump right into it. The first thing we want to cover is the PowerShell adapters release. So this is, you may have previously seen this as being referred to as JSON adapters. We have changed the name and re-released it to be under the Microsoft.PowerShell.ps adapters name for the module. And I will just do a quick demo of this again. If I can find my Teams window, hang on one second. So, oh, this is good. Being in the conference room, I can verify that I am actually sharing my screen. So, the PowerShell adapters is very similar. Not much has changed for the experience with the module, but using the latest PowerShell preview, you can import. So you can see this is now the full name of the module, and just a reminder, so this uses this identifies these things called adapters, which are just PowerShell scripts in your path that can be used to convert native commands to PowerShell objects. And so if I do something like uname-a, you can see the feedback provider triggers and kind of gives me a suggestion that says, hey, you can use JC, which is a JSON converter tool that I have installed on my system, as well as a uname adapter, which I have created myself. And simply you can see what the adapter looks like. It's very simple. I just take an input, pass it to JC again, and convert it from JSON. But you can make more complex adapters, as you wish, just using a very simple PowerShell scripting stuff. We've posted a number of blog posts about this, so I suggest if you are interested in learning more about them to check out those blog posts. But yeah, just wanted to announce that. So going forward, we'll be referring to them as PowerShell adapters.
To clarify, is this like fully baked and released in your mind at this point? Is this still marked as an experimental feature? Are there any other buy-ins anybody needs to do to try it out?
So this is reliant on feedback providers, which are an experimental feature still, and there's still going to be an experimental feature through 7.4. And as far as, I guess, the module itself, we feel like it's in a pretty good state. We're still very open to changes in the future around it, but
we still have work. I still have work to do on this module. Remember, it's a module, so it relies on the predictors and feedback functionality. And as Stephen said, it is an experimental feature. This module is, of course, always going to be optional. That's our current plan. So you can use it or not.
Okay. I think it might be valuable to see if we can set up some time, Jim, to kind of go over some of the feedback that I've already had, and Stephen to do a separate feed or follow-up outside of this meeting, just because
Perhaps, yeah.
Don't want to burn all the time, but I do still want to, make sure that this comes out as perfectly as it can be. I appreciate the rename quite a bit. It also seems like it was pretty well received by the community. I would also just love it if we can get to the point where it is at least possible to say, I always want to use the adapter. Like, I don't ever want uname to return naturally. I always want to call the adapter because I always wanted it as objects. So I think that would be a good thing to kind of get into offline, and I'm shutting up now.
Cool. Okay. Well, yeah, we'll follow up offline about that. The next thing on our agenda, I see Carlos is here. Carlos, are you? And Clint?
Yeah, we're here.
Cool. Well, take it away, guys. I'll pass it over to you.
Awesome. So yeah, I'm here to talk about a new PowerShell module we've been working on called Command Not Found. And basically the idea behind it is, well, I'll just show it to you. It's a lot easier that way. So the idea is just if you type in a command and guess what? You don't have it installed, like Visual Studio VS Code. We actually just recommend through Winget what to install. And so we kind of do a quick query on the back end and try to get that to you. And so we're taking advantage of the feedback predictor and the feedback provider and the command predictor. So when you start typing in your result, it actually auto completes it for you, which is pretty cool. And I just wanted to show off a little bit of that too. Like, oh yes, go ahead, Ryan.
So just a quick one. Will this also then tie into the PowerShell gallery? Because not all of these names are going to be stuff that we're going to have from Winget. It will be stuff from the PowerShell gallery as well.
Can I answer that one? PowerShell PS Resource Get will have this capability in the future. What is missing that Winget has today is a offline ability to query. So look for that in the future, but this will be Winget side will be separate from the PowerShell gallery side.
Yeah, and so this is just doing everything on the Winget side, and we try to streamline as much as possible. So like if we did a Winget search code, yeah, you can see we get a lot of options here. So we try to leverage the metadata that Winget has to give you kind of the best results possible. And this also works with some of the, like if you actually use it as a command, like npm install, it knows that you were talking about npm specifically. And so we're able to pull that up. Oh, and I can do a terminal one too. Yeah, we can give you a good amount of results. But one of the few things I just wanted to say on it is this is still a work in progress. Right now we have a draft PR open in the PowerToys repo. So you can take a look at all the code that's behind all this and what our fallback system is. It's pretty straightforward. We'd love to get some feedback from the community on it. Clint, is there anything you wanted to add on this?
Yeah, I think the big thing for us is understanding what could we do better. We want to be learn-it-alls. We're coming in humble. If there's something that's not working correctly or like we're not doing a best practice, please make us aware. There is an open pull request here. We're waiting for a .NET 8 to come out, and then so we're targeting maybe the November, December release, maybe for this being inside of PowerToys. So whatever we can do to make this the best thing for everyone, we want to learn from you all because you are the experts of PowerShell. We just play one on TV poorly. And if this is a great way of interacting, like please let us know. That's the great thing with PowerToys is we can incubate really quickly.
So Clint and Carl, one comment for you guys, and you guys have to decide if you want to do this, but .NET releases, our release candidate releases or go live. So they technically support it in production, so you don't have to wait for GA.
Today I learned.
So it's really up to you, but unless they've changed their plans, their release candidates have always been go live. So
I did not know that.
Yeah, for .NET, I've seen release notes. This one, it is also that's still true. So
you don't have to wait till November.
Awesome. Then yeah, we're working on getting PowerToys up to .NET 8, and we're hoping this will give a good, clear story from being able to install your whatever packages you're missing, using Winget to export your configuration, and then hopefully you're able to import it using Dev Home and that whole scenario, just creating a better ecosystem for y'all.
Yeah, it looks really good. I hope there will be, beyond Winget stuff, a human editable form of what suggestion possibilities might exist for commands and modules. That is, like, it'd be nice if we have a reference file somewhere that can be programmatically looked at and individually edited to say, I know what blah.exe is. I know how you can install it. So, yeah, not everything's going to be Winget. Not everything's going to be Gallery. As long as it's editable, this should be fantastic.
I would love to talk to you in the future on the kind of like how you'd work with this, not in a giant setting like this, but like you're raising some interesting scenarios. Like we're thinking in terms of, hey, I set up a new computer and I need VS Code. You type in terminal code because that you'd expect that to pop up and you don't get it. So it's just like, how do we get you up and going as fast as possible is one of our team's internal mantras. So I'd love to understand how you want that file, how that file would work. Like how would it get on your computer in the first place for this kind of scenario?
Fair enough. If you wanted to take that offline, you can drop your email or something in chat or something. Any other way I can contact you, I'll get in touch.
Do feedback providers only pop up after you've like entered a command and like tried to execute it?
So let me answer that one. So there's two different things. Feedback providers require something to happen before they get invoked. But predictors are the opposite, where they can show an inline prediction. So what scenario are you trying to figure out?
Well, more inline predict out. Right now the state of the existence is that Monaco has its own sort of like IntelliSense. Then we've got PowerShell Editor Services that's using your input completions, and then we've got this feedback provider thing that's also doing it. And there's Copilot involved, and sometimes it gets really confusing when I'm like in a script, and then like Editor Services pops up with its thing, but then the shadow text pops up, and I'm just wondering, is there any sort of like cohesion planned, or is that kind of the purpose of what you guys are doing, is to try to maybe bake this Copilot stuff to ultimately underneath this new feedback provider interface or the completion provider interface, so that way it's not like VS Code Copilot extension fighting with editor services?
So VS Code specifically, I think that it's going to be a question for them if your concern is how to present all these different ways to get assistance. I can tell you that one of the things that we decided on the feedback provider interface model is that we're not supporting Copilot or AI type of thing. It just takes too long. And what we don't want to do is hold the prompt for too long before we return a result. There are other things that we're not talking about today about AI, but maybe in the future.
Yeah,
Okay.
I don't mean to beat the dead horse here, but if you are looking at that sort of delay-based problem, this is where having an event-oriented feedback provider might be more helpful. Just because at this point, if you are saying you're going to have to pend prompt for all the feedback and not have a channel that can come back with more feedback, then we're only going to be able to give feedback that we can give just like that. So yeah, let's revisit that again too.
Yeah, I'll reach out to you, James, and we can set up some time to chat more about this. Cool. I saw one question while we're still on the Winget feedback provider topic about do you guys plan to post this on the gallery, on the PowerShell gallery?
Yeah, definitely. Right now in its development, we're wrapping up the PowerShell module itself. The next step is to work on that and polishing the PowerToy side of it so that we have a clean like installation method through that. But either way, it's going to be on the gallery.
Awesome. Great. I will. So then I think pass it. The next item is Steve.
I think we're talking about experimental features.
Yeah. Sorry.
The fun stuff.
Features for 7.4. What?
I'm going to show that. All right. So this is an issue, not an issue. This is a discussion in the PowerShell repo of the results of the PowerShell community triaging what was experimental in 7.4 and what we intend to make stable. Can the conference room mute for a second? Since I'm getting echo from you guys. Okay. So I'm going to just quickly go over this. And by the way, if you guys have feedback, if you think something's not ready or if you have questions or whatever, feel free to just add it as comments in this discussion. We'll take a look at that. But currently, I'm going to quickly go over these real quick. So constrained audit logging. So this is where if using, so WDC is the Windows Defender application control. So if you're using that, one of the problems was that without going into the weeds, basically we have this thing called constrained language mode and we have lockdown mode, and people get confused by these two things. And it's not simply that if you sign your script, things just magically work. There are other, how your script interacts with other things, whether they're signed or not, also has behavior changes. So the logging here basically allows you to have WDAC audit mode, and then what will happen is that everything will work because it actually runs in full language mode, but we'll actually do the additional check and say, if you were actually in lockdown, what would have actually happened? Would we have prevented this from working and stuff like that? So this should make it easier for administrators trying to enable WDAC enforcement mode to know what actually is going to happen via audit. This is the table header. So basically, for any PowerShell table, if the heading is actually not a property on the object, but is something that's synthetic for formatting, then it has a different rendering, and so this allows you to change that decoration as well. The PS Windows native command arg passing has gone through multiple iterations trying to fix things that come up. But basically, based on looking at telemetry, it looks like people have not been changing it back to legacy. So we feel like this is stable enough that we want this to be default in 7.4. The native action command or action preference is also something that seems like we've had enough people testing it that this is where if you have a native command and it emits a non-zero exit code, then we interpret that as failure and we will synthetically generate a PowerShell error. That way you can handle native commands and commandlet error handling in a similar way. Keep in mind that although this feature is going to move to stable, there'll still be false by default, meaning that by default there's no behavioral change, and you have to actually explicitly set the preference variable to true so that native non-zero exit codes act the same as PowerShell errors. And then the last one is the native pipe. So this will allow you to do something like curl pipe to tar and will now work, whereas before PowerShell was in the middle of this and tried to interpret binary output as text, and it's lossy, so that didn't work. So these are the ones we've looked at based on the feedback, based on telemetry, and we believe these are stable enough that these will become stable in 7.4. Anything that's not in this list, including feedback provider, for example, feedback provider interface, will stay experimental through 7.4, and we'll reevaluate that through 7.5, which will be next year, or maybe December, we'll see. But I think that covers, unless there's any questions, I think that covers my section here.
Cool. I think we got now some updates from PS Resource Get.
Awesome. I'm going to paste the link to the blog post in the chat, but on September 7th, so 2 weeks ago, we released the RC for PS Resource Get. This has been a very long time coming, so a huge thank you to all the community support and issues and feedback that has gotten us to this point. This release was just bug fixes, really minor bug fixes at this point. We weren't really taking any major changes at this point because we really want to make this final push to GA and have as stable of a release as so you can check out the changelog there, but just some what we saw as important but low risk, kind of that matrix of bug fixes are the things that went into this RC. We have a few more bug fixes that are kind of going into the GA release at this point in time, but I expect a GA to be coming soon. So look forward to that. But definitely keep trying out the release and keep the bug reports coming. I already started building the project for our first patch release. It's going to come out after GA. So the work is not stopping. And in fact, I expect like maybe the patch release to get into like 7.4. So the work is going to continue on PS Resource Get. Keep trying it out, like keep filing those bug reports for us. But just like huge shout out to both the community and the engineering team on this, because it's been a really big effort to get us to this point in RC. I also want to thank Sean for all the documentation help on this module. He's been so on top of it in terms of like updating our docs with every single preview release and all of that. The docs are also kind of go live at this point. RC is live as a go live release. It's fully supported. So are the docs kind of at this point. So please check out the docs and give us feedback on that as well. Those would be my 2 plugs. I'll pass things to Anam in case there's anything I missed that you'd want to mention about the RC release.
No, I think you covered it all perfectly, Sydney. I also did want to mention that we did a compat PowerShell Get release, and I can drop the link for the blog post for that.
Thank you.
But that will allow users to keep using their PowerShell Get v2 fully qualified type commands or commandlets while getting the benefits of the PS Resource Get code and the performance improvements that we have. So also recommend checking that out if your scripts or code are using the PowerShell Get v2 kind of commandlet syntaxes. Yeah, that's all that I had. I think you covered RC perfectly. Oh, I think you're muted, Sydney.
What did that happen?
I was probably just thank you. Thanks. I don't know how we got on mute. But anyways, yeah. So if you were still using PowerShell Get previews and you didn't upgrade or change to PS Resource Get, if you upgrade your PowerShell Get to the latest preview now, you'll notice that the commandlets are no longer the install PS resource commandlets. They've now switched back to install module. So the latest PowerShell Get preview is now like the compatibility module, and like moving forward, PowerShell Get will continue to be the compatibility module. So that's just an important thing to know with the compatibility module. But yeah, we'll link the blog post if you want to read more about that there. And I can pass it off to Stephen with the next.
Yeah, I think next we got docs updates. Sean, are you here and available to?
I am. Let me share my screen and drop a bunch of links here. So want to talk about some changes to the platform on docs. We recently changed how search works. So in the table of contents here, you have this filter box. And what this allows you to do is you can start typing, and this acts as a filter, and it's filtering on the title of the article. Or this last item here is you can search. So let me give you an example. Search for a term like idempotent. There's nothing in the table of contents that has that word in it, but I can search all the PowerShell documentation. This is called a search scope, and not every doc set on the Learn platform has a search scope defined, but I have that for PowerShell, and you can see we got back 9 articles. But if I search for the same thing over here in the top right in the site level nav bar, you see we get a lot more results. So this is searching the entire Learn site, not just the doc set. So that's the change they made. The site level search is now global instead of scoped. The other thing I wanted to show that's coming soon, hopefully Monday of next week, is a new feedback control at the bottom of the page. So today, what this looks like is this. You click the give feedback on this page, and it opens a new GitHub issue with some information pre-populated, and you add your notes here. But it's easy to delete this content, and it also, we don't get a lot of quality feedback this way. In the new experience, you'll see this at the bottom of the page, and when you click this to open a new documentation issue, it's taking you to a new issue template with the metadata pre-populated, metadata about the article you were on pre-populated. So the only thing you need to do here is add a descriptive title and then a description of your feedback. Anything with the red asterisk on it is required data. You don't want to change any of this data that was pre-filled in for you, but add your information here. And then there's optional boxes for more details and to add environmental information, give us some version information to help us out. So that's coming next week. And then, as always, want to talk about what's new in documentation. There's been a ton of work done in the DSC v3 space. We'll look at that here in a second. Crescendo 1.1 released, and the docs have been updated for that. Actually, in August it was RC1, and it's gone to GA release now. Course updates for the new preview release, and we also have this new article about feedback providers, how to create your own feedback provider with sample code here. And here's the new Crescendo docs. All of these links are in the chat. In PowerShell Get, I've updated the documentation, now reflects the new status of PowerShell Get. Beta 22, this is the proxy module, proxy commandlet module. So you still have all the old commandlets, but these are proxy functions that will call the new commandlets in the PS resource get module. There are differences between the old module and the new module. There's some parameters that no longer apply, and those will get silently discarded. Some parameters get transformed, so mapped to the new parameters on the commandlets, and in other cases, they pass through to the same parameter name on the new commandlet. So you can read about all of this and all of the updates to PS Resource Git for the latest release, the RC1 release. In DSC space, over the past couple of months, a ton of new documentation. I think we're up over 70 new documents here, so you can see I've expanded the table of contents. Lots of great work here by Mikey, and he's created sample code for implementing DSC resources with full documentation over on this new site. Again, these links are in the chat. In the Azure PowerShell space, there's a new feature that we released for notifications. So now when you're using Azure PowerShell, if you have an older version installed, it'll give you a sort of a pop-up message in your terminal telling you that you can upgrade. But this is configurable feature. It is off by default, and the link in the chat takes you to this documentation that explains how to turn it on if you want. And that is my docs update.
Hey, Sean, there's some discussion in the chat regarding docs. Can you respond?
Yes, I saw that, and I was about to respond.
Cool. Thanks for the updates, Sean. Now Sydney's gonna present some updates on the VS Code extension.
Great. Yeah, gonna keep this one pretty short. I'm gonna paste just a link to the changelog, nothing too exciting in the chat. Since the last community call, we've had 2 preview releases of the PowerShell extension in VS Code. These have primarily been bug fix focused. We've also been picking up the PS readline betas to get some extra testing on those as they moved to GA. There have also been some community contributions in there, but just thanks to Andy, Patrick, and I think Justin had a few PRs that went in there as well for making these releases happen. In terms of next steps that you can expect for the extension, we have another preview release that's kind of ready to go that we're expecting to get out early next week. And then from there, barring no major issues, we're going to roll that into stable probably later next week. And we'll be calling that kind of like our fall VS Code stable release. So expect a blog post probably later next week and a stable release kind of bringing together all of our kind of preview releases from the summer. And that'll include the new GA of PS Readline, which I think Steven is going to talk about.
Yeah.
I don't know if that's the next agenda item.
It's not.
It's
but
not, but it's
coming
coming later. It would have been too good of a segue if it was.
Yeah. First, we got some updates on DSC Alpha 2. I think Steve, you're gonna take those.
Yes. So I'll just kind of be quick because I don't know if we're ahead or behind. I think we're behind time a little bit. So anyway, we're making steady progress through DSC 3. And I'll just call out a couple of the big changes in the Alpha 2. So, and these are primarily being requested by some of our partners, but basically, instead of searching by the path marker variable, if you have a DC_resource_path, we'll use that instead. Depends on is implemented in the configuration. So if you have specific sequencing of how you want resources to be invoked, you can use depends on now. Other than that, the other thing is, I'm trying to remember if export came in V2. I'm trying to look at the release notes. Yeah, so export was the other big thing. So this is like the kind of like the reverse DSC, where if you had manually configured a system and you want to suck out all the configurations, you can apply it somewhere else. That's what export is going to enable. One thing I'll call out is that you can't directly support export via PowerShell class yet. We have a separate issue open to add that support in the future. There are workarounds where if you had a PowerShell script, you can actually, because you can execute those via the command line, you can also just have those be your resource. So there's ways around that if you want to play around with the export capability. But for an export configuration to work, every resource that's in that configuration also needs to support export. So hopefully we'll get more of those being developed in the future. We are working towards an Alpha 3, which hopefully will come out next week. I guess that's all I'll say about that for now. Unless Mike, I see Mikey's here. I don't know if there's anything you want to add on to that.
Yeah, the only other thing I wanted to say is that there's a new article specific to DSC that people might find useful. We've been doing some work to enhance the schemas. So if you're playing around, there's a new article around using the enhanced schemas. These are non-canonical. They do the exact same validation, but they include a bunch of extra VS Code specific keywords that really push up the authoring experience. So you'll get better IntelliSense, you'll get links to the online docs when you hover on stuff. Enums get descriptions, so you can see like, well, what does this value actually mean without having to go read the docs. And we're going to keep improving those. There's new snippets and a bunch of other stuff.
Cool. Thanks, Steve and Mikey. I'll keep this short and sweet, but we have GA PowerShell or PS Readline 2.3.3. We'll be having a blog post coming up pretty soon highlighting some of the features. Not a whole lot of changes between the latest beta and this release, just a couple of bug fixes. The primary feature changes are with list view and predictors, which we've posted about in our blogs already with the previous releases. So we'd love for everyone to give it a try and let us know how it's working for you. It should, like Sydney mentioned, it should be in the next stable release of the VS Code extension. So that'll be good. And yeah, I think that's all I got to say about that. Sydney, do you want to talk about some gallery stuff?
I would love to. So a couple of quick updates about the gallery. So I think one of the agenda items was referencing potential downtime on the gallery due to a change we were making with Azure Front Door. And I want to say that that change actually happened last week and was very successful. And we didn't, as far as we know, due to our monitors, nobody experienced any downtime. And so actually nothing to worry about there. But one thing I will note, just as a practice that we kind of used with that was we used the banner feature on the gallery. We knew we needed to make this change. And so we 48 hours in advance, we knew that the downtime would be only about 5 minutes if anything were to occur or less, because we could have an immediate rollback. But we put up the banner on the gallery about 48 hours in advance, left it on there, and then kind of made the change. So would expect that to be the pattern rolling forward, going forward, if there are changes like that needed to be made in the future. And if we do have the timing where we can make an announcement at a community call, we of course will make that announcement as well. But I think we have a pretty good plan in place at this point in time where we can make really quick rollbacks to a known good release. So good stuff on that. One other thing I was going to mention about the gallery is many folks have reported, we're well aware that thanks to many reports that stats were down for a period of time on the gallery. I'm very happy to announce that as of this morning, we have resolved this issue and stats are officially fully working again. So many thanks to the gallery team for getting that back up and working again. Root cause came down to a cert rotation issue, but that has been resolved and stats should be up and working again. So thank you to everyone who kind of worked with us on that and reported the issue. I think that's all I've got on gallery for the time being.
Being brief with my thanks. That was a very welcome warning banner. As somebody who's writing publishing modules all the time, it was great to see the heads up, and I can indeed confirm stats are working again.
Awesome.
So thank you.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Cool. And so just a quick plug. Next thing is Microsoft Ignite. Microsoft Ignite is coming up in November. I believe the dates are the 14th through the 17th. I think this is the correct link. But just wanted to see if any kind of folks are planning to attend Ignite. We're looking at having an event around or do you want to talk about?
Yeah, sure. So I'm working on, so many of you who have attended Ignite in the past may know that there's oftentimes been a PowerShell community event at Ignite, and I'm working on planning that right now. And so I'm just like trying to get a sense of like what scale that might look like or that sort of thing in terms of like reserving an event space. So if I could get any sense of like, hey, I'm thinking about like attending in person, that's super useful to me in terms of like starting to kind of make those plans and just like letting you know that there will be a PowerShell presence there. I don't believe that this schedule has come out yet, but hopefully that will come out soon. But just letting you all know, the PowerShell team will be there. There will be a PowerShell presence, and in addition to that, I'm working on planning a PowerShell community event. So if you would be interested in potentially attending, obviously not a commitment, it's helpful for my planning purposes just to start to get a sense of like what that might look like. So yeah, attending in person, attending online, either way would be great for us to know just for planning purposes. I think that's all we've got for Ignite at the moment, but more to come around Ignite. And while we're on the conference topic, I'll also just mention as well, coming up next month, Gail did post in the chat, there is PS MiniConf. That is an online event. I believe it's on October 24th in European time zones, but I'm sure you can get the exact times through the link. breaking news, I am doing a PS Resource Get session at that, and I think many other folks from the community will be doing awesome sessions as well. So hope to see folks at that event as well.
Yeah, I think that covers everything with conferences. And I believe there's a pretty large online presence for those who can't make it in person at Ignite. So definitely keep an eye out for new content coming out around that time too.
Yeah, absolutely.
But I think that covers that. Another quick topic: the November end of year community call, second Thursday of the month.
That's me. All right. So first off, I appreciate all the community members and all the team members that participate in these monthly community calls. You know, it's always the third Thursday of the month. Over the last few years we've been doing this, we've always canceled November because it coincides with Thanksgiving, which is highly celebrated in America, specifically the United States. And then December, we typically also cancel because people on the team are taking off time off for the holidays, Christmas, and potentially New Year's and stuff like that. So the thing that we're discussing as a team is maybe what we should do is have the second Thursday of November be our end of year community call, and would extend it to, I think we're discussing like 2 hours, and also encourage people in the community to bring in stuff they want to cover as well. Like maybe different user groups can kind of maybe do a summary of end of year, different conferences, stuff like that. And also, I think, as far as I recall, I don't want to put you on the spot, Sydney, I think you were coordinating some working group stuff, but maybe we can ask the working group members, one representative from each working group, to kind of also cover how the year went for them and stuff like that. So I think we're trying to still figure out the agenda, but I think we're pretty close to saying, yeah, let's have the second Thursday. So we'll probably have a separate invite. We'll have to update the PowerShell RFC repo where we hold the community call stuff. But we'll try it this year and we'll see how that goes. And maybe this will be a regular recurring thing.
Cool. I think that covers everything. Did you cover what you wanted to on the December community call, Steve?
Oh, I guess oh yeah, I forgot about that part. So the other thinking was because the November one would be the last community call for officially from the team, that leaves open if the community themselves want to do a call in December for whoever's available. That would be something that we would be interested in helping to coordinate, although keep in mind that many team members will probably be on vacation. But whoever is interested in maybe doing that, I say reach out to Stephen or Sydney or Jason. Any of those three.
I mean, I'll be in town and I wouldn't mind having a December community call. It's like PowerShell Christmas presents, right?
Yeah, exactly.
Cool. I think that covers everything from our agenda. One thing I did see in the chat was the call for the CFP for the PowerShell DevOps Global Summit opens on October 1st. So keep an eye out for that. That's usually held April, and I'm sure there'll be more announcements once things are finalized later. But I wanted to call that out because I saw that in the chat. I think that covers our main agenda. Let me check.
We did it. 15
We did
minutes.
it.
Rapid fire mode.
So yeah, maybe James, if you want to talk about the Pacific PowerShell user group.
Since I just chat spammed, I will go ahead and do that.
Perfect.
So finally set up a Pacific PowerShell user group. We had our first meeting last month. We actually had about half of the meetup signups join, so that was pretty great, actually. We got our next meeting coming up the second Wednesday of every month. So we'll have one with Anthony Howell talking PowerShell and .NET on October 11th at 6 p.m. I believe the month after that, we're going to have Bruce Payette talking about Braid. I think I'm going to be doing December. Hint, hint, nudge, nudge, PowerShell team members. You got releases coming up right after the new year, right? You want to talk about them in the subsequent months? Let's get you guys booked now. But yeah, the first meeting went better than expected. I hope the second meeting also goes better than expected. It's really nice as a West Coast PowerShell user to have something that isn't, stop the middle of my workday to go attend a meeting. although it is, maybe have a late dinner during your meeting night. But yeah, it was a real fun first instance, and I hope to see people more in the future. So anybody that wants to sign up is welcome to. That's about it on that one. Aside from that, I have a general smattering of new toys. Anybody want to see new toys?
Sure.
Okay, well now let me get into demo mode.
I guess while you're doing that, I'll just address the other question in the community call. I think from JB Lewis, we'll follow up on that issue. Yeah. Okay. Cool. And if there's any other questions,
that was an interesting audio distraction there.
If there's any other questions or other people that would like to do any sort of quick demo, something cool they found, something they've been working on, anything at all, feel free to drop it in the chat or the GitHub link. A good community call around in December. Yeah, that's a good call, Ryan, to get a discussion set up for the December call. Would it? I guess probably be good to have it in the same spot as all the community call discussions.
Like community call discussion, more like community focused rather than like us starting with the agenda. Let folks bring what they want to talk about more so.
Yeah, honestly, also could be the start of a good tradition. Like if you guys, no offense at all meant, but if you guys get to set agenda for 11 months of the year on the PowerShell community call, giving the floor back to the community for the last meeting of the year could be fun and could
Listen,
be,
we're always happy to give you the floor.
Oh no, I don't need it that much. But
thanks, Ryan, for opening it up.
Yeah. All right. May I share?
Sure. Do you need permission?
It appears that I do.
Okay. Hang on one second.
So I'm just going to go for the fun points one, just because it's probably the most visually stimulating.
Oh, yeah. Do you need me to do this?
And yeah, I didn't say mother may I share, but I did say may I share, not can I share. Although technically, on a pure grammatical level, I cannot share because the share icon is disabled. So
yeah, sorry, give me a second.
This is one of those few cases where can would have been the right one. There we go. I can do it.
You should be good now. Okay.
But I appreciate the grammar lesson from the chat. Okay, let's see if I got the right screen. Maybe not. Am I sharing a code window or am I sharing another code window? Yeah, no, we got the right one. PSA?
Yep.
Okay. Yes. So who has gotten on Blue Sky yet? Come on, PowerShell team. It's a new social network. Set up some handles before other people camp them. Yeah. One of the things that I keep needing to do as a developer is get to the point where I can basically publicize releases as they come out. And one of the things I love to do as a developer is go take a new area that I could kind of, look at its metadata and turn it into commandlets and get a whole bunch of new functionality. So last week I set my sights at PSA, at Blue Sky, and at building a general announcement module for PowerShell. And well, let's let a picture speak 1,000 words if, it's so nice to me. So let's go ahead and get my feed timeline. It is going to take a second because it is somebody else's server and it is sometimes slow. Homina, homina, homina. There we go, though. So this is every post made to my own timeline in Blue Sky. You can see there are a couple of ones here. Today's horrifying thought. We've all probably ignored a greater volume of spam than all the correspondence cherished. Thanks to PS Style, I can actually click this link, open this up, get right to the post status. But, why stop there? I can go ahead and say, get blue sky. Actually, I have a variable set up for this, my blue sky profile. Go ahead and see my own profile. Followers. I need more followers. I also need to build a formatter for followers. It's not all perfect yet. Follows. So what I'm doing here is basically taking their object model and turning it into PowerShell commandlets and decorating those PowerShell commandlets so that we can format them appropriately and making nice formatting for a social media network, and also getting it to the point where I can say, send blue sky here, showing off PSA at the PowerShell community call. And let's go for, some bonus points, and let's grab a link to the discussions. Sorry for a second, I gotta get the right tab open. You know what? I'll just link to PowerShell check out the best GitHub repository, or check out the best or the PowerShell source here. PowerShell. Sorry, I didn't write a demo file for this one yet, but I did just go ahead and send that out, and I can now go ahead to my profile on Blue Sky and go ahead, and there we go. Now, because, one goes for bonus points, I'm going to point out two things here. And the first is, this is a GitHub action. You can go ahead and use it on Marketplace. Now, actually, I've revised three things. Second thing is that I can actually repeat this approach. And I'm just going to show you the files that I don't have checked in right now, which include commands for all of Mastodon too. So if you want to start automating social networks again with PowerShell, I got you. That's fun. The other little big fun thing that's especially a good community call, point out, is an approach here. We often write a lot of modules where we need the module to configure itself post-load, okay? Like connecting to a resource with a particular credential being a common one. As far as a good, sustainable, cheap approach to this, what I've ended up doing here is creating the concept of a module profile. So I'm going to go in profile, split path, get child item, filter PSA star. Module profiles, really a simple concept. Instead of having your normal host prefix your profile.ps1, you have whatever module name.profile.ps1. And any module could choose to have a respect for a module profile. So in this case, I'm choosing to have a respect for a module profile. And if I go look at that file, it's just going off and getting the secret of the credential I'll use to connect and connecting. So not only do we have a nice way to talk to Blue Sky, and coming down the pike, a nice way to talk to Mastodon and, whatever other social networks we end up eating up over time, but we also have accidentally kind of discovered a good convention that we can all use to make our modules configurable with basically a single line of code. Because all we need to do is basically split path for profile, test path to see if there's a profile for our thing, and then run it. So that's the PSA on PSA, and I think that was a long enough demo, so I'm going to stop sharing and get off the hot seat. If you want me back on it later, we can come back to it. Thoughts?
I like it.
A Cylon said they liked it, I think. But yeah, if anybody is interested in helping with that over the long term, there are plenty of social networks to eat up, and having a good generic function that we can use to talk to all of them and shout out stuff might be beneficial to the community at large, as long as it doesn't hack another election. knocking on wood. So yeah, that's my main thing for the day. I'm shutting up now.
Thanks, James. Pretty cool. See, there's some stuff going on in the chat. I'll pause for a minute if anyone else has any other kind of questions. Otherwise, we're getting close to the end here, so.
Don't forget to wear your Halloween costumes to the October call. We'll be having a costume contest, so.
Well, at least you're warning us. Thank you. Now I'll know why there are random zombies in the call next month. At least presuming, you know. But yeah.
Just kidding. Nobody has to wear costumes.
I think we'll see only Sydney wearing a costume.
Yeah, I keep meaning to actually, like, you know, get my embroidery machine set up and start to rock it with PowerShell. But hey, you
That'd be
know,
awesome.
next time. Thank you guys for continuing to set this up and having, you know, such an open community and getting so damn much done in the past month. In fact, so damn much done every month that you can easily fill 45 minutes of meeting time just saying, hey, here's what we've been up to. Yeah, you guys are awesome. Thank you.
Thanks.
Thank you. Thank you all for being awesome.
Cool. Well, thanks everyone for joining. We can end off there, and thanks everyone for coming. We'll see you in October.
Bye.
Bye.